Hello everyone and welcome to my little corner of the internet. My name's Michael and I'm bitten by a radioactive book. Today I want to present to you a new format I have on my channel, which is called Recent Reads. I picked this up from a couple of other booktubers, but mainly from Judy from A Girl in the Book. And she does something that I really enjoy. She talks about like 2 or 3 books that she read in the last couple of days or weeks. And then talks a little bit about the books that she's currently reading and what's up on her radar. And I want to do this more dynamic format as well, instead of these like stale monthly TBRs and wrap-ups. And yeah, I hope you enjoy that format and I hope it works out the way I want it to. So let's get into 4 books I have finished lately. First of all, we have Redemption Arc by Alistair Reynolds. It's the 2nd installment in his Revelation Space series. This is actually a very complex like space opera. It's hard to talk about the actual plot because you should know like what happened in Revelation Space and maybe also in Chasm City, a standalone in the world that is technically a good thing to have read before Redemption Arc as well. So Alistair Reynolds has a very interesting idea of the evolution of humankind. This is vastly into the far future, where some of the humans have, for example, some kind of hive mind, and but of course they decided that not everybody should be able to have like the same amount of knowledge. And so there's like the normal hive mind, there's like this inner council, there's also like then like another like black secret council within the inner council and things like that. Yeah, so that's quite interesting. Space travel is like it's still slow, and so people go into like yeah, cryosleep, and so characters for some time go into like hibernation for like 20, 30, 40 years to come out at the other end of the universe, or not the other end of the universe, but yeah, so at another place in space. So there are very interesting ideas he has in there. The plot, I don't want to get into the plot like too much. It's like manifold. It's complicated. It's also he also has a very interesting idea about technology. So you should bring with you at least a little interest in being interested in this and have an open mind to his ideas, because then you will enjoy this more. But you can also like read it just for like the characters and the plot. So I'm really intrigued by both his like world building and all of his ideas. So in the end I rated it 4 stars. Next up, we have the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. This is the first installment in her Broken Empire series. This won the Hugo Award and a lot of people are talking about it, so I was interested in reading it. I haven't read N.K. Jemisin before because for the first trilogy I heard that it might be a little bit too YA for me. So I skipped that, although I own, I think, the first book even in physical form. I always wanted to read her duology, but never got around to it. But now, yeah, with this one, I started. We're having like 3 main characters here. The first is Assen, who's a mother, maybe the most prominent character in the book, as N.K. Jemisin uses a narrative device that her story is told in 2nd person. So it's like the author talking straight to you. And Assen has a very heartbreaking story. Like in the first chapter, she discovers that her son is killed, apparently by her husband, and the husband fled the scene and took away her daughter. And she and her children all have the power to manipulate Earth. in kind of a geomancer way. And this is frowned upon in this world. And so normally people are killed or shunned or thrown out of societies for this. And so she kept this a secret, and maybe because her husband figured it out finally what her children were as well, killed the son. That's like her working theory. Um, and so yeah, we have her story, and then we have the story uh, of a younger or of a young girl, and she has this geomantic power as well, and gets like taken and schooled, and from her point of view we learn more about how this actually works. And then we have like an adolescent woman, maybe in her early 20s, and she is also a geomancer, and she's sent on a mission with like a large mentor geomancer who has a 10 ring, which is basically like yeah, the most powerful of geomancers, and they are yeah into investigate like yeah an occurrence in a harbor of a town. uh, and they are also meant to breed, because that's what apparently the geomancers want to do. If they find children, they want to breed more people that they can control. And so yeah, we follow the fate of these three women, and um, as you can see, there is a lot of like world building going into it. I like this because the kind of world building tidbits you get to figure out how the system, how society works, are like a mosaic puzzle, like strewn through all of the three narratives, and you put together like your own fragmented picture of the world, which might not be complete after the first book. But yeah, in the beginning you have to learn a lot of vocabulary, and sometimes like accept that it's not immediately explained what that means. But overall, I enjoyed this a lot. There is like a twist in the end that a lot of people talked about. The I figured it out pretty early on. I'm a little bit proud of myself because I had a working theory a little bit around, I think, the 20% mark, and I figured it out, and I was quite happy that the author decided to do what she did in the end. Yeah, so you have that. There's also like a little bit of a secret in there. Yeah, so very enjoyable, and I'm actually going to buddy read the second installment, The Obelisk Gate, starting on Monday with Julie from A Girl and a Book. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to read this second installment, because the third installment comes out, I think, August 15th. Next up, we have The Lascar Stagger by Glenda Lark. It's the first installment in her Forsaken Land series. Here we are following two main protagonists. The first is Sorrel Redwing. She is a woman on the run because she killed her husband, because her husband killed their child, only for the reason because the child was deaf. And Sorrel seeks like shelter in a temple, in a shrine, with a magic kind of oak and tree, and there she is bestowed upon a gift from this tree that helps her to escape. And then she signs on with a princess and becomes her kind of maid and spy. Our other main character is Saker, who is a priest for the Va faith. The Va faith is like split up in two ways: the way of the oak, and the other way. I'm not doing it justice. Of course, I'm not prepared, apparently. So the way of the oak is more of these shrine, magic tree kind of thing, and the other way, which name eludes me, is the way that is more like traditional Catholic Church based. with stone churches and stuff like that, organized priesthood. But both are like elements of the Va faith, um, the leader, the pontifact, so the direct boss of Saker, she yeah, wants to hold the balance between the two faiths together, but there's like yeah, succession within the church that people want to abandon the old way of the oak, and yeah, so the pontifact takes her priest and sends him onto an influential court where he is placed to be the advisor of the prince and the princess, brother and sister, and the princess is actually the princess that our maid from our first POV is the maid of. So this is how the connection starts. And the priest, in his like mission before this mission, requires a mysterious dagger, and the dagger seems to follow him around wherever he goes. And when he throws it away, for some reason it always turns up and ends up in his possession again. So there's also that thing where he kind of needs to figure out what this is all about. This book was very interesting because, like, within the first 60%, I thought it would more be like a 3-ish star read for me. It was like a very slow burning book, but at the 60% mark, actually for both characters, the whole setup and setting changes. So there's like a distinctive yeah, point in the book where everything is different, and from there on out I enjoyed the book way more than I did in the first half. So in the end I gave this 4 stars, and I'm really intrigued to yeah, read the follow-up books, and I bought the 3rd one. You will see it in my haul tomorrow. And last but not least, I read Moroder by Ella McNeil. This is the first installment in her World of Lunaria series. This is supposed to be 6 books. She's a self-published author, and Moroder is our main character, and she is a noblewoman, and together with her sister Erin, she's fallen from grace. Actually, when the story starts out, we see her in a dungeon and she's trapped, and Erin has to spring her out. And in the cell, they have like an interesting creature called a Vakane, which is somebody who is able to be invisible, some kind of shape-shifting entity as well. Shape-shifting is very important in Ella McNeil's world. Most of the non-human races actually are able to appear human or have like a human ground form, but are then able to like shapeshift into something else. There's, for example, the Italians, who are able to shapeshift into animals. Then there's the Irilians, who are like winged human beings. There's dragons that are revered as gods, flying around in the sky. When Moroder and Erin escape from the dungeon, they also escape together with like a sky pirate, and how all the shape-shifting races, members of each race, and the sky pirate and Moroder and Erin get together and end up on their adventure, it's for you to find out. I found this a highly imaginative debut. You can see it's a debut. There are some themes that felt a little bit rushed for me. That would be my main critique point of the book. But the imagination that Ella McNeil has, that's something that's drawing me to her works. And I can't wait for Pelham, the 2nd installment in the series, to come out. She's writing that at the moment, and yeah, as soon as that comes out, you're going to see a review of this on my channel as well. Okay, let's get into a currently reading part. So this is, or these are like the main let's say 4 to 5 books that I'm reading at the moment. First off, we have Winterbirth by Brian Ruckley, the first installment in his Godless World series. That was more than I expected so far. I thought it would be more of a grimdark military fantasy, but it's actually a very epic fantasy. It reminds me a little bit of Sherwood Smith Indus series, not in the way that there is like a training montage going on for a lot of the book, but for like the complex world building. You have to get a little bit into the naming conventions, which are complicated. But when you have figured them out, yeah, it works, but it needs a little bit of work, but I like that. Um, and we have like humans, and the humans are organized in bloods, who are maybe like the tribes, different tribes. So they have Thanes as like leaders, and there's the High Thane that they're sworn to. There are like other bloods in the north that have been thrown out from the country, and some of the bloods are guarding against them. There are non-human creatures going through like the woods, the wood wights. You have other very mysterious creatures that are almost demonic. Yeah, and in this world we have a plethora of characters, a young brother and sister from a noble house, a leader of another noble house who's like their uncle. We have one of his warriors who fights in the south for the High Thane. Yeah, and there's, as I said, a plethora of characters, a complicated web of political intrigue as well. And I'm quite taken with this book. It won't be for everyone, I'll warn you there, but I personally like it a lot, and I just acquired the second and third installment, which you will see in my book haul tomorrow. The next book I'm reading is also buddy reads, is Tyrant's Throne, the fourth and final installment in Sebastian de Castell's Greatcoat series. I think I don't need to tell you that much. If you're a follower of BookTube SFF, you will have seen many reviews about this series. It's basically a fantasy version of the Three Musketeers with a lot of action and banter. I really enjoy this series. I'm buddy reading this final installment with Caitlin from Kitty G, and I'm like 30-ish% into it, and so far I really like this again. Next up we have Godblind by Anna Stevens, which is her first, or her debut. This is a grimdark fantasy, also in a more Nordic tribal kind of environment. People are either following the red gods, who seem to be like, yeah, thrown out of the world or exiled from the world, and they're trying to get back into it, and their followers are trying this with very bloody ritual. On the other hand, we have the gods of the light and their followers. Yeah, the book has a very interesting narrative, because it's like a lot of characters. The chapters are very short, and therefore the reading is a little bit fractured. So maybe this would be a good book to read like in 1 or 2 sittings if you have the time, because I'm spacing this out. It feels a little bit disjointed at the moment for me. But yeah, it's definitely interesting, but also you are in for some very, very brutal scenes, so be warned. Another grimdark book I'm reading is The Steel Remains by Richard Morgan. I'm buddy reading this with Laura McNeil, the author of Moroder. And so we're following, so far, I think 3 characters, and the main protagonist, who has like every other chapter, is called Wriggles? I don't know. And he's a very famous swordsman. He, yeah, apparently won a battle a couple of years ago, and since then he's like very famous, and he's like slaying undead creatures since then. And but he has kind of gone to a backwater town, but then his mother comes, and his mother is very, I think, a little bit mad and disappointed in him because he's a gay guy, and I think she wanted him to marry, and so he has a very interesting relationship with his mother, and she drags him off to a town where like all his career began, to investigate the disappearance, I think, of a cousin. Um, and so you see, on the one hand, and that is what makes this book very interesting, you have certainly a little bit of black humor elements in there as well, but also like very dark and brutal scenes and undead creatures going around. There's a lot of cussing in there, so if you're not up for this, that might not be the book for you. But it's actually quite of a fun romp so far. I've not read that much, maybe the first 5 chapters, but it's promising. I like it so far. And finally, I'm reading Magician by Raymond E. Feast, or Feist. This is like the first installment in his long-running Midkemia or Rift War series, which has like 31 books overall, and this is like the first installment. I have read the first trilogy, and maybe even 1 or 2 more books in German 20 years ago, and I remember it as like very, very classical fantasy. Like there's elves there, there's dwarves there, yes, there's axe-wielding dwarves there, and hammers, maces as well, I think. A mall. You will see why a mall is funny tomorrow in my book haul. So I really wanted to get back to it and maybe like read the whole series. That will be like decided when I've like finished the first trilogy, but so far I'm really enjoying being back into this world. And we're also doing a little glimpse into the near future because I'm starting 2 buddy reads on Monday. The first one I already talked about. This will be my read with Julie from A Girl and the Book for The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin, the second installment in the Broken Empire series, and I'm really looking forward to this. And the other buddy read I'm going to do is Soul of the World. This is a 2017 release. It just came out, and it is by David Mealing. This seems to be like an epic fantasy. We're following 3 points of view. A street artist in a town who gets wrapped up in political intrigue, I think. We have a grizzled colonel on the battlefield. We have a magic-wielding wizard in the woods. These seem to be like our main protagonists. This seems to be very interesting. And I'm going to read this with Lourdes and Tina, which channels I will link down below. I think I'm going to link all the channels I talked about. But maybe I'm lazy, but no, I'm going to do that. Yeah, and so we all have this book, and we want to get started on Monday and read it together. So that's it. That's my recent reads format. Tell me in the comments below, do you like that kind of format, or do you want me to go back like to a more traditional wrap-up and TBR kind of setup? Yeah, we'll try this out, I think, for the near future and see how it goes. Yeah, so tomorrow, please join me for another crazy 50-book book haul. Yes, I did it again. Yeah, until then, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit the like button. If you want to see more of me, subscribe to my channel. And until next time, I hope you get bitten by a really good book too. Bye.